Hello, everybody. So this is Sudipta. I'm back with our probably the seventh town hall series. So as you may know, I lead the US growth and marketing with Global Pix, which is Rockville based. So I've been within the fintech space for about a decade. My last stint was in the B2B2C payment space. Very excited to be in the B2B2B space right now. Uh, Today's webinar, super excited to have Alex. So maybe a little bit background about Alex. Alex has been a digital transformation consultant, a strategist, and influencer. He has been named in several industry influencer lists in FinTech, RegTech, blockchain. So is a pre-known name in the industry. He has been featured in the Irish Tech News. He has been the Indie Banker of the Month. And most interestingly, because a lot of our audience are actually CFOs, so he actually has published various publications, including CFO Outlook, Finovate. The other key audience of our webinar series are CIOs. So he's also been featured in CIO Insights. Interestingly, Alex has been featured in Wall Street Journal, Boston Globe, Financial Brand. So Alex is like the true rock star in the fintech industry. Yeah, he speaks, and I'll promise this is the last line before I hand it over to him. So he speaks at a lot of industry events, including Money 2020 in the US. Also, he has spoken, I believe, last year at American Bankers Digital Banking Conference. So, Alex, why don't we start a little bit about yourself? Where are you located? What do you do in your free time? And maybe what are your plans this weekend?
I'm located in Las Vegas, Nevada. And what was the other question? What I'm doing this weekend? I am going to see Duran Duran in concert.
Wow.
That'll tell you pretty roughly how old I am. And my wife and I are avid runners, and so one of the things we'll be doing on Saturday, I think our long run this weekend is 11 miles, so we'll be doing a little bit of running as well.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. Maybe we'll organize a separate session on some running tips. But today's webinar, we will talk a lot about topic which is I think super interesting, and especially after 30th of November last year, this word became like the buzzword, right? So I'm sure I'm giving people hints, but let me kind of give a little bit of background. So in the last 30 years, six technologies have really changed how we live, how we work, how we do anything, right? The first was in the 1990s. I'm sure many of them would have experienced is the internet, right? The birth of the internet. I believe around late 90s, early 2000s when we really started, using Yahoo Chat, Lycos email, stuff like that, right? Post that, what we saw was the browsers, right? Where we kind of went to the browser, searched stuff, checked our emails, right? Early 2000s, then we saw companies like Google, right, come into place, right? So the whole concept of search, even though there were other players, but I think Google revolutionized it, right? So that's the third thing that we really saw in the last 30 years, Google. And I think the thing that really changed everything was the birth of the smartphone. I don't know, 2006, 2007. So iPhone, Android ecosystem. So that's something that really revolutionized. And of course, post the iPhone, post the smartphone, we see cloud. And guess what? What is the sixth most? AI, right? Now, uh, AI pretty much, became the buzzword. I think after 30th of November, when a company called ChatGPT got launched, and it kind of led to the browserization of AI. So our topic is going to be on AI, and I would probably, I mean, kind of the first question that I want to ask Alex is, I don't think AI is really old, right? I mean, I know AI has become the buzzword now, but I mean, Alex, I think AI pretty much holds a lot of potential. It has already been instrumental, right? Especially the classic AI. So
Hmm?
why don't we talk a little bit about how AI holds potential in the B2B modernization? How you have seen AI playing a pivotal role, right, in transforming traditional banking processes.
Yeah. Yeah, so AI didn't start in November of last year, right? We've had AI, probably since the 1970s in some form. What's different is this whole generative AI category that if you go back maybe 5-6 years ago, people in AI were talking about it and talking about how it was making a lot of changes and how it could be impactful. But people outside of technology were not really aware of it, except for movies and things like that, right? Suddenly, there's this Chat GPT tool, and there's a couple others, right? There's also the graphical generative AI that went out to consumers in the past year, and people have suddenly been able to play with something, and they have been blown away by what AI can do. But a lot of these things, large language models have been around for 10 years or so, and it's just most of us didn't have access to play with it, right? So there's a lot of potential. There's also a lot of buzz, right? There's a lot of these things that are you know exaggerated. You see people talking about how AI is now has cognition similar to a child. That's not true. It doesn't have cognition. It does not understand the way humans understand things, right? But it certainly is capable. Is a technology that can be capable to do all kinds of things. So in banking or financial services, we've been using AI for quite a long time to do things like underwriting and risk management and predictions and data. Yeah, predictive AI is very different from generative AI. Now, how you combine those two might be something novel and something that could change a lot of things. But it's kind of an old technology that is continues to advance. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Do you see, Alex, any like actually interestingly, I was in a very interesting conference yesterday, right? It was attended by I mean, the panel was actually hosted by the founder of Akamai. There was the chief data scientist of the United Nations. So one very interesting discussion that came up was how social media, when it started, right, initially it was looked at as extremely beneficial because people can connect. I know where Alex is going to a concert, right? How his running is. But what we see now is social media is actually, people are now realizing the negative effects of too much social media, especially with kids and all, right?
Mhm.
With AI, it's the other way. People are talking, maybe things which are uncalled for right now, and perhaps it's not as necessary, right? That we call out so many risks, right? I don't believe that there are so many risks that are there in AI, right? So, do
Well,
you do you
I don't
kind
know.
of
I would disagree with you on that. There's a lot of risks, and there's a lot of issues with it. There's some real basic ones. For example, on graphical AI, there's the when you go to some of these generative AI solutions and you ask for give me generate a picture of a leader, invariably it's going to be a middle-aged white man, right? It's
right,
not going to show you a person of color. It's not going to show you a woman. It's always
true.
going to be a middle-aged white man, right?
It's too
And it's
biased.
because it's biased on the data, right? The data biases it. On things like facial recognition. Those of us that are darker are a little harder for facial recognition to pick us up. And so it's expecting lighter skin And if you're a dark-skinned person, it's not going to read you, or it's going to be confused and say that you're somebody else, right? So there's all kinds of issues from that. And in financial services, it's a similar thing. If you have a underwriting system that's trained on data that is biased towards a certain demographic, and then you go to underwrite an insurance policy or a loan, um, the system, if it's learning on itself, may actually put biased information or biased decision parameters to give you a decision. So there's some big issues from bias, some big decisions, big issues on not understanding the technology itself, right? The black box, which is what you see a lot of regulators throughout the world wanting to have some sort of view into how those decisions are being made by AI, and no one knows how to respond to those questions, right? There's the need to have understandability AI, right? So it's transparent, you know what it is. So there's many issues there.
Sure.
Then there's the issue of ChatGPT imagines all sorts of things. So I started playing with ChatGPT with everybody else, and at some point I asked ChatGPT to give me my biography, and it said it didn't know me. Fine. Then I asked it differently, and then it gave me a biography that was not mine. I recognized who the biography was. It was actually a gentleman that I used to work for. It was his
Wow.
biography, but it said that I was the founder of a company. I never founded a company. It said that I went to college in San Francisco. I never did that. It said all sorts of things. And again, I recognized who the person was, but it wasn't me, right? And if you take that information and say, oh, I know this person, and know, because ChatGPT told me all of this, you'd be entirely wrong what it said. And it seems that sometimes when they take some of these generative AI solutions and have them train on its own responses, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And so you got to understand what you do, and you got to understand how it works. And these you see these people talking about the mistakes that are being made by generative AI that are fairly simple for a human to catch, but not for a system that really is working on statistical analysis, which is what's behind ChatGPT.
Sure. Just, I think, calls to say that there's so much more to do, right? I mean, I think we've just started scratching the surface, right? So
Yeah.
I'm sure whatever you've mentioned would need to get sorted, right? Else the
Mhm.
risks are immense, right? But
Yeah.
but I, but I think we should be. But do you agree that we should be more positive about it, or should we be scared about it, or like
Yeah,
should we?
well, we shouldn't be scared about it, right? So if you think back to the beginning of the industrial age, lots of people were scared about automation and technology and factory lines and so on, and saying that it was going to take away everybody's job and everyone would be on the dole, whatever. That didn't happen, right? We changed, we adapted, we new jobs came to the forefront. I think the same thing is going to happen, right? So you see people who are getting jobs whose specific job is to do prompts in generative AI. The prompt engineer, which I hate that title because they're not engineers. As an engineer, I hate to see that, right? But these are people who understand how the system works, how to do appropriate prompts to get the information or the solution or whatever it is that you want out of it, right? That is a role that didn't exist 2 years ago, right? And it's just going to be like that. We're going to have to continue to change as people to use these tools appropriately. So it's scary because some of the jobs are going to go away, but it's just going to change, and change is something that we've always have had throughout the ages, right? So we got rid of the secretary pools from the 1950s and through the 1980s, right? Those jobs don't exist, but now there are jobs that are significantly different,
Yeah.
and I expect that to be the case.
Right.
I expect that we will have to have regulations to make sure that AI is used appropriately and so on. And there's some scary stuff because AI is going to be used by fraudsters and by people to try. People already doing
Yeah.
that
Make
too.
all the Tesla cars go to the left.
Yeah.
Somebody, you know.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
there's lots of things.
Yeah.
And then you start seeing things like the self-driving cars, which all of that is AI, right?
Right.
There's some positives to that. There's some negatives to that. It's just like everything else. Everything social media has positives still,
Sure.
and there's negatives. And some of the negatives that we have seen are not the negatives we expected, right? The
Absolutely.
negatives we expected would be, oh, people are going to be addicted to this, people are going to be antisocial, etc. And really, some of the challenges we've seen is, oh, there's misinformation because of social media, because there's nobody making sure that's what's been disseminated rather, is real. That and so we're starting to believe things that don't exist just because a popular person posted it, right? So
So,
weren't the things that we thought were going to be the negatives of social media when social media came out.
so talking about jobs, right? A very
Yeah.
good example there is in 1990, sorry, in 1900s, right?
Mhm.
Like 120 years back, when horse carriages were in New York, right? I think they were
Yeah.
all very scared that they are going to lose their jobs because I see cars are coming in, right? Ford launched their cars, but then I don't think they lost their jobs. They actually became car mechanics, right? So
Yeah. Some of them did,
so
I'm sure.
yeah, yeah, at least so I think some of the fear is unfounded. But talking about jobs, Alex, right, in the fintech space, in
Mhm.
the B2B automation space, right?
Yep.
I know you had posted an article about uh, the whole you know education system about fintechs, right? So
Yep.
if you want to throw some light around, how do you see, are we kind of creating enough platforms for people to know about, let's say, AI in that will be used in automation in banking, so that they are equipped when they do their jobs? So any thoughts around that in terms of?
Yeah, I mean, there's a challenge right now because we don't have enough developers in the world to do all the things we need to do, right? And some companies, like my company, have built a business model that includes the ability to take the people throughout the world and do development for people in the Americas or Western Europe, right? So, yeah, you see the large development centers in Bangalore and all, throughout Latin America, throughout India, throughout Eastern Europe that are supporting organizations in uh, both North America and Western Europe, right? But the reality is we don't have enough developers even in those places, right? And so that's a challenge, and we need to get more people trained and upskilled, right? If you are a developer and all you know is Java, you're going to be very limited in what you're going to be supporting, right? You need to continue to learn new technologies, continue to learn what AI means and how do you use it, etc. In the fintech world is no different. I mean, the fintech is just application of technology into finance, right? We see a lot of organizations struggling with getting developers, but you also see a lot of fintech organizations struggling with getting experts in the industry, because a lot of the experts in the industry have old mindsets, can't make the jump into a technology company, and so there's challenges all around. It's not just technology itself, but it's also anything in and around the fintech business. So you're referring to an article about some colleges in the U.S. that are rolling out fintech programs, and my 2 cents was, I don't know if we need a fintech program. I think that we need fintech courses people understand, but fintech is moving so quickly, just like AI or other technology or applications of technology, that you take a 2-year master's program in fintech. By the time you finish, what you learned a year ago is no longer applicable, right? So it really, what I would like to see is more people getting getting uh, uh, more general degrees, but continue to be learning throughout their lives, which is something that I've always tried to do. I've always tried to learn what's coming. I've always tried to understand what's the next thing. And I see people in banking specifically who have said, okay, now I get this job. I'm a executive vice president of mortgage at this bank. This is the epitome of my career. I don't need to learn anything else because this is where I am. And I've had, 30 years of experience. Now I can just be the expert. No, you can't just be the expert now. You might be the expert this second, but you're not going to be expert tomorrow. You need to learn and you need to continue to understand what's going on. Same thing in all the other roles, right?
Sure, sure. I mean, my next question actually a segue to leaders, right? As in,
Yeah.
we spoke about fintech programs which are typically taken by people who are in colleges who want to get new jobs. What about Alex? Leaders, right? Because you know people who are very senior positions, like you mentioned, right? SVP, VP. How can leaders drive this shift within, let's say, legacy banks,
Mhm.
legacy companies, the whole transformation into newer technologies? How do you use generative AI in their relative spaces, right?
Yeah.
Not as a buzzword, but in
Yeah.
actual.
But actually, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I talk about digital transformation a lot because
yeah,
that's what I do. But what I see is that organizations, you know, use digital transformation as a PR point, right? We're going to do digital transformation. And in reality, all they're doing is modernizing certain systems, and that's that, or moving to the cloud. And they said, okay, we did digital transformation because we moved from on-prem to the cloud. That's not digital transformation. That's one specific project. Digital transformation is really, forget about the word digital. It's really transformation of the business model. And to do transformation of the business model, you have to do it top down. Which means that the board and the CEO have to own it. They may delegate parts of it, but they have to own the change of the business model. You can't delegate it to a chief digital officer or a CIO or a CTO. Certainly, those are extremely important roles in an organization. But to just say, okay, Susie, you're a CDO, go do it, and just leave me here to do my CEO stuff is the wrong approach. And yes, CEOs have to know lots of things, and there's all kinds of priorities for their time and so on. And yes, they might have had 30, 40 years of experience, and that's how they got to be a CEO. So they're not going to be experts in AI or anything else of that sort. But they need to understand how consumers or clients rather are expecting how they're going to receive their products and services and what products and services they want, and then what capabilities you need to have in the organization to meet them, which includes updating technology, but also includes changing how you sell, how you support the kind of products and services that you're presenting. So in banking, our banking products is pretty simple. A loan's a loan. A checking operating account it's an operating account. Those are the basics of those haven't changed, but what's around them and how they're delivered and how you apply for and how you service them, it's entirely different now from what it used to be, right? And a CEO doesn't need to understand that, but needs to understand at a high level, we need to change it. We need to disinterminate ourselves here if we want to be ahead, and we need to have a culture of change and innovation, etc. And yes, the technology people, the digital people are going to bring all the technology into place, but it's going to be driven by the CEO on the board. It's something like 70% of all digital transformations in industry, not just banking or anything else, but in industry fail. The reason they fail is because they don't tackle the culture part. They don't tackle the change that you have to do and the change management that has to deal with people. And so if a CEO cannot give you the vision of where you want the organization to be in the future, you're not going to transform. And if that CEO is not telling you over and over again that vision and explaining it and telling you the stories of how that's going to change, you're just going to be complacent and you're going to stay
So it needs to be in the DNA, right? As an of
it
the
has to
organization.
be in the DNA, right? So when I tell people why digital transformations don't work is forget the word digital. It's transformation. That's the focus. How do you transform something? You don't transform it by plugging in Gen AI and say, I'm done, particularly since you didn't even know what that means, right?
Right, right. So one, very important aspect that I want to ask you, Alex, is
Hmm?
obviously you spoke about, you know, uh, top-down approach. We spoke
Hmm?
about even bottom-up, right? Which is how people who are joining the workforce, they need to be aware. What about partnerships? So one of
Hmm?
the things that I want to ask you, Alex, is, we see a lot of, there was this debate about, big tech companies, the debate about banks versus fintech, right? Do
Yeah.
you believe that traditional companies, traditional banks can leverage fintech partnerships to, for example, Fed now got launched right last
Hmm?
month, start
Yeah.
to implement those. So what do you think about partnerships?
Yeah, I think partnerships is the way to go for organizations that are not the big banks, and even the big banks. But the big banks have a lot of resources and they can throw money at things, and sometimes they can fake out things. Meaning, you say something's automated, but you have a group of 30 people sitting somewhere in some back office making it happen, making it look automated. Small organizations can't do those sort of things. And yes, you build that transformation DNA, but at the end of the day, majority of banks don't have top-notch technology teams to make changes, and so you need to partner, and you need to partner with all kinds of organizations to make it happen. And everybody does that, but the difference between just having a vendor and having a partner is significant. And you start seeing that, particularly with fintechs. If you go back a decade ago, fintechs were all about getting rid of banks, and they were going to replace banks. That's all you heard. That didn't happen, and that didn't happen for many many reasons. But one of the reasons is it's very difficult to start with solving one problem and then becoming a bank that solves thousands of problems for consumers, right? Scaling up doesn't work very easily. Very few organizations have gone from just doing one thing well and then becoming a bank. So you think maybe like SoFi would be a good example of one that seems to be going down that path. You kind of think of PayPal maybe doing some of that, but they're not becoming HSBC or UBS or Wells Fargo. That's not happening. And so they have pivoted, or we've had new fintechs are really focusing on solving problems for banks, for legacy organizations, and they don't want to just be a vendor. They want a skin in the game. They want to be able to own that solution and work with the banks. And what the beauty of that is that the banks can then work with these smaller, more nimble organizations that can help them do whatever they need to do for their clients. So I see tons of those partnerships happening now, and in some areas you actually see the big banks actually acquiring some of those fintechs to be able to do what they need to do. And small organizations, their best way to go down that path is partnerships. And by the way, they can partner with someone like us at EPAM to help them define that and define their strategy and build some of those capabilities.
Absolutely. Now, I know we are right about touching the 30-minute mark.
Hmm?
Any uh, wrapping up comments, Alex, before I ask you which are the three songs that you're going to look forward to at the concert? But
Oh
before
my
that,
goodness, don't ask me that.
before I ask you, before I ask you that, I want any last, maybe top three things that you would advise companies or banks, right, to adopt stuff, right? What do they need to do in terms of
Right.
getting themselves? Yeah.
Yeah. Don't roll out AI just because it's there. Right. Figure out what problems you have, or what problems your clients have, and then look at how you can solve those problems. AI might be a solution. It might not be, right? Don't just say, okay, we can do AI and solve this problem, right? Sometimes we already have a solution, we're just not using it appropriately. Sometimes is AI is not the right thing. Earlier you talked about me being recognized as a thought leader in blockchain, and one of the funny things is we haven't figured out how to use blockchain because it's been a solution looking for a problem. We can't be doing the same thing with AI. AI is quite powerful and we can solve all kinds of things. But don't say, oh, this, I really enjoy having this discussion with ChatGPT. I'm going to roll out that kind of technology on a chatbot on my mobile app. Maybe that's a good idea, but don't start with the technology, start with the problem,
Sure.
right? So I think I only gave you one there, but
Yeah.
it's a big one.
The other thing that I keep hearing is don't look at AI or these technologies to cut costs, but look at how you can increase revenues. Because I think one of the other tendencies
Agreed.
that I've seen is people thinking, "Oh, I'm going to use AI and reduce people." But I think the focus should be use AI to how do you increase your top line, how do you increase the revenues, right? I think that should be the thought process. Do you
Yeah.
agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was a study done by Harvard Business School that looked at what companies in general did during a downturn, and the companies that did the best were the companies that combine optimization with revenue generation, as opposed to just cost cutting. Cost cutting was not great. Investing in new technology wasn't great either. In fact, they were almost equal in results. But the ones that had a balanced way to go about doing both actually did significantly better.
Fantastic.
And so that's the way to go, is to think about not just, oh, I can cut 3 bodies here and therefore I'm gonna save this much. It's really, how can I optimize what they're doing? And maybe you can reduce people, but at the same time, looking at how can I improve my revenues? That's the way to go.
Fantastic. No, Alex, thank you so much. I know we are like 2 minutes over time. I think Shikha is already messaging that we're over time. So thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you.
Do let us know how the concert went. My favorite song is "Come Undone," by the way. So
Oh,
I will.
fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's a good one. Yeah.
keep us updated and all the best for your marathon. We should follow each other on Strava.
Sounds good. We'll do
Okay.
that.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.